The ancestral hall of the Fu family estate was thick with the cloying scent of sandalwood, the air heavy and suffocating. I knelt on the icy blue stone floor, my shoulders pinned down by 2 bodyguards. The impact of my knees against the stone sent a sharp jolt of pain through me, making me suck in a cold breath, but I clenched my teeth and refused to make a sound. Before me, the spirit tablets of the Fu family ancestors lined the central altar, their presence a silent, judgmental audience, and there, just 3 steps away, stood my husband, Fu Beichen, his arm wrapped around the waist of another woman. That woman was Lin Wanwan. She was dressed in the latest Chanel white dress, her lower belly slightly rounded. She huddled against Fu Beichen like a frightened rabbit, her lips trembling, tears clinging to her eyelashes. She looked utterly pitiful, a picture of delicate vulnerability. But I remembered it all so clearly. Just half an hour ago, this same Lin Wanwan had barged into my room, her belly protruding, and knelt before me, sobbing, "Sister, I'm carrying Beichen's child. I beg you, let us be together." My mind went blank. Instinctively, I reached out to help her up. Yes, to help, not to push, but she fell backward with a shriek, crying out, "Sister, no." Then Fu Beichen burst in. He didn't even glance at me. He dropped to his knees and gathered Lin Wanwan into his arms, his voice suddenly tender, as if he were a completely different person. "Wanwan, where does it hurt? Is your stomach uncomfortable?" In that moment, staring at his face, so full of concern, I felt a strange distance. 3 years of marriage, and he had never spoken to me in that tone. He had always been cold, indifferent, as if he were dealing with a live-in maid. Lin Wanwan sobbed uncontrollably in his arms, her slender fingers clutching his shirt sleeve, tears streaming down her face one by one. "Beichen, I really didn't mean to. I just wanted to see sister, to apologize. I don't want to destroy your marriage." But when sister saw my belly, she went crazy. She called me a mistress, said the baby was a bastard, and she pushed me. Her voice broke into sobs by the end, her face buried in Fu Beichen's chest, her shoulders shaking. Hearing her twist the truth like that, I felt a surge of blood rush to my head. "Lin Wanwan, you're lying. You knelt down and begged me to let you be together. I reached out to help you up. I never pushed you." Fu Beichen finally lifted his head to look at me. He wore a dark gray custom suit, his features as cold and sharp as if carved from marble. His eyes were beautiful, deep as a pool of water, but when they looked at me, there was never any warmth. Now, those eyes were filled with disgust. "Jiang Wanning, the child in Wanwan's belly is mine." He said it so calmly, as if reading a document. My heart felt like it was being squeezed, the pain so sharp I could barely breathe. I had guessed it, but hearing him admit it out loud was like a knife plunging deep into my chest. "For months," Fu Beichen added, "for months, Lin Wanwan had been pregnant for 4 months, and 4 months ago, on my birthday, Fu Beichen had stayed home to have dinner with me. That night, he drank a little, reached out and touched my hair, and said, 'Wanning, you've worked hard.' Just those 5 words, and I was so happy I couldn't sleep all night. I thought he was finally starting to accept me. I thought the 3 years of effort had finally paid off. Turns out that tenderness was just his guilt for what he had done outside." "Beichen, my stomach hurts a little." Lin Wanwan suddenly whimpered, her hand on her belly, her brow furrowed, her voice trembling. "That fall, I'm scared." Fu Beichen's face changed instantly. He tightened his arm around Lin Wanwan and turned to me, his eyes now completely cold. "Jiang Wanning, Wanwan is 4 months pregnant. If something happens to the child because of that push, what can you offer in compensation?" "I didn't push her." "Enough," Fu Beichen cut me off, his voice low but carrying a chilling edge. "You hurt Wanwan, that's a fact. The Fu family has its rules. Today, I must give Wanwan justice." With that, he released Lin Wanwan, walked to the altar, and took down a rattan whip that had hung there for who knows how many years. It was as thick as a thumb, polished smooth by time. In Fu Beichen's hand, it looked menacing. Lin Wanwan stood in the corner, one hand on her belly, the other wiping her tears, just as Fu Beichen turned, the corner of her mouth curled up. I was the only one who saw that smile. She was smiling. She was gloating. Fu Beichen returned with the whip, towering over me as I knelt. His shadow fell over me like a mountain pressing down. "Jiang Wanning, according to Fu family rules, for jealousy and causing harm, the punishment is 20 lashes in the ancestral hall." He handed the whip to the bodyguard beside him, his voice as calm as if he were ordering a trivial task. "Execute." 2 words. Light and dismissive, as if he were commenting on the weather. My eyes instantly reddened, not from fear, but from the cold that seeped into my bones. 3 years, every shirt I washed for him, every meal I cooked, every late night I waited for him to come home, it all felt like a joke now. He was going to hit me, for a lying woman. He was going to strike me 20 times in front of his ancestors' spirit tablets. The bodyguard took the whip and stepped behind me. I heard it cut through the air, a sound as sharp as a blade. Jiang warning, if you kneel and count out a 1-1 3 times to apologize now, I might consider reducing the lashes. Fu Beichen stood beside Lin Wanwan, hands in his trouser pockets, chin raised slightly, looking at me as if I were a servant who had made a mistake. Lin Wanwan had stopped crying. She leaned against Fu Beichen's shoulder, her eyes sparkling as she looked at me. That smile on her lips impossible to hide. She leaned close to his ear and said, just loud enough for me to hear, Beichen, sister is your lawful wife. After all, maybe we should let it go. I don't want to make things hard for you. Fu Beichen reached out and gently stroked her hair, his voice so tender it could drip with honey. You don't need to plead for her. When you make a mistake, you pay the price. Then he lifted his head, and his eyes turned icy cold again. Begin. The bodyguard raised the rattan whip. The whip arced high through the dim, yellow light of the ancestral hall. Carving a line through the air, I closed my eyes, and in that instant, a sudden, thunderous roar erupted from outside. The sound pressed down like a tidal wave, like thunder, like 1,000 horses galloping. The windows of the hall rattled with the vibration, and the incense burner on the offering table trembled faintly. Fu Beichen's face changed. He whipped his head toward the window. What is that sound? The roar grew closer, louder, until it became the deafening churn of helicopter blades. Slicing through the air, the noise hovered directly overhead, shaking the roof tiles of the hall into a clattering symphony. Lin Wanwan's face went white with fear. She clung desperately to Fu Beichen's arm. Beichen, what's happening? Before Fu Beichen could answer, the main doors of the hall were slammed open from the outside. A servant stumbled in, his face as pale as paper, his lips trembling so violently he couldn't form a single coherent word. Young master, something terrible. Fu Beichen frowned, his voice sharp and cold. Speak clearly. The servant pointed toward the door, his entire body shaking like a sieve. There are so many cars outside, all Rolls-Royces. They've blocked the entire street. I can't even count them, at least 100. The ancestral hall fell into a dead silence, so quiet that you could hear Lin Wanwan's sharp intake of breath. Fu Beichen's pupils contracted sharply. He released Lin Wanwan's hand and strode to the window to look outside, then his body froze. From where I stood, I could see his back tense up visibly. Who is it? His voice was low, barely a whisper. Before the servant could answer, the doors to the hall were pushed open again. Not just pushed, they were thrust open by a calm yet commanding presence. A middle-aged man in a black Zhongshan suit strode in, followed by 2 rows of bodyguards dressed in identical black uniforms. Each one stood over 6 feet tall, their backs straight as ramrods, their eyes sharp as unsheathed blades. The moment they stepped inside, the entire room felt cramped. The middle-aged man didn't even glance at Fu Beichen or Lin Wanwan. He walked straight toward me. When he saw me kneeling on the ground, held down by 2 bodyguards, the pain and fury in his eyes nearly burned through the air. Miss, the master sent me to bring you home. Miss, those 2 words detonated like bombs in the ancestral hall. Fu Beichen's face went from ashen to deathly pale. He stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Miss. What miss? The middle-aged man finally turned around and swept a glance over Fu Beichen, a look not of anger or contempt, but of condescending indifference. Mr. Fu, you've been married to our young miss for 3 years, yet you don't even know her true identity. She is the only daughter of Jiang Jinshan, the sole heir to the Jiang group. Lin Wanwan's legs gave out. She collapsed to the floor, clutching her stomach. The color drained completely from her face. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Jiang Jinshan, her voice cracked, sharp and shrill. The richest man in the country, Jiang Jinshan. Fu Beichen stood frozen, as if struck by lightning. He stared at me, his eyes shifting from shock to disbelief, and then to something I couldn't read, maybe regret, maybe fear. The 2 bodyguards holding me down had already let go. Scrambling away like frightened dogs, I stood up from the ground, my knees numb from kneeling too long, but I straightened my back with pride. I reached up and smoothed my rumpled collar, then walked step by step toward the door. When I passed by Fu Beichen, I paused. He stood there, still gripping the rattan whip. Jiang Wannin, he called my name, his voice hoarse, as if filled with sand. I didn't look at him. I kept walking. Behind me, I heard Fu Beichen's footsteps. He caught up and grabbed my wrist. His fingers were ice cold, his grip so tight it felt like he might crush my bones. "You can't leave," he said, his voice trembling. "You're still my wife." Fu Beichen's wife. I looked down at his hand gripping mine. This was the same hand that had just ordered 20 lashes for me. I lifted my head and met his eyes that were no longer cold but filled with panic, and I found it absurd. 3 years. He had never looked at me like this before, and it took learning I was the heiress to a fortune. Fu Beichen, my voice was soft, as light as a feather falling to the ground. "The moment you raised that whip for Lin Wanwan, you lost the right to touch my hand." One by one, I pried his fingers off. He was strong, but my hands were steady. When I freed the last finger, I saw something shatter in his eyes. I didn't look back. I turned and walked out of the ancestral hall. Behind me, Fu Beichen's hoarse roar echoed. Jiang Wannin. Then came the sound of bodyguards stopping him, the thud of bodies colliding, Lin Wanwan's shrill screams of Beichen. All those sounds blended together, a ridiculous farce. I didn't turn around. Outside the Fu family's old mansion, the sunlight was so bright it made me squint, and then I saw the street, from one end to the other, lined with black Rolls-Royces, each one polished to a mirror shine, reflecting cold light under the sun. The line of cars disappeared around the corner, endless. Beside every car stood a bodyguard in a black suit and white gloves. They stood straight as spears. When they saw me walk out of the gate, 100 bodyguards bowed in unison. "Welcome home, miss." The roar of 100 voices merged into a single torrent, shaking the windows of the Fu family's old mansion so violently they rattled. Above, the helicopter still hovered, its spinning blades whipping the wind through my hair. The door of the leading Rolls-Royce swung open. An elderly man with graying hair stepped out. He wore a deep gray mouse suit, his back straight as a rod, though his temples were streaked with white. His eyes remained sharp as a hawk's, the kind of gaze forged only by a lifetime of navigating the business world. The moment his eyes met mine, that sharpness dissolved entirely into aching tenderness. Then his gaze dropped to my wrist, where Fu Beichen had gripped it earlier, now blooming into a bruised, purplish mark. The old man's eyes reddened instantly. "Wanning." His voice was soft, as if afraid to startle me. "Father came late." I stood on the steps of the Fu family's old mansion, the cage that had trapped me for 3 years behind me, and before me stood my father, come to take me home. The helicopter roared overhead, the wind from its blades whipping my skirt into a frenzy. The tears I had held back for 3 years finally spilled over. Chapter 2. 100 luxury cars blocked the gate. The entire street outside the Fu family's old mansion was clogged with 100 Rolls-Royces, bumper to bumper. I stood on the steps, staring at the sea of black cars before me, at the bodyguards bowing in unison, at my father, Jiang Jinshan, reaching out to me with red-rimmed eyes. 3 years. It had been 3 whole years since I last saw my father. When I insisted on marrying Fu Beichen in secret, hiding my identity, my father had smashed his prized collection of 20-year-old Asian teapots in a fury. He pointed a trembling finger at my nose and said, "Jiang Wanning, if you dare step out that door to marry that man named Fu, don't call me father anymore." I knelt and kowtowed 3 times, then grabbed my suitcase and left. That day, it poured rain. I didn't take an umbrella, the rainwater mixing with my tears as they streamed down my face. As I reached the alley entrance, I looked back and saw my father standing behind the second-floor window of our villa, one hand braced against the frame, the other wiping his eyes. He thought I hadn't noticed. I didn't call him out on it. Countless times over those 3 years, I thought about calling my father. I dialed the number, then deleted it again and again. I didn't know what to say. That I was doing well in the Fu family, that would be a lie. That I was suffering, that would mean admitting I'd been blind from the start. So I said nothing, gritting my teeth and enduring day after day. Now, my father stood before me. His hair was much whiter than when I'd left home, the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes deeper, but his back was still straight, his eyes still bright, standing there like an unshakable mountain. "Dad." I only managed that one word before my voice choked up. Jiang Jinshan pulled me into his arms in one swift motion. His palms were broad and warm, patting my back gently, just like when he used to soothe me to sleep as a child. "Don't cry, Wanning, don't cry. Dad's here. No one can bully you anymore." When he said that, his voice carried a mix of heartache and anger that only a father could possess. I buried my face in his shoulder and let out all the grievances of the past 3 years. Behind me, the Fu family's old mansion erupted with the sound of hurried footsteps. Fu Beichen burst out of the ancestral hall, His suit jacket was unbuttoned at some point, his hair slightly disheveled, making him look utterly disheveled. Behind him came Lin Wanwan, stumbling out in her 10-centimeter heels, her face as pale as paper. Jiang Wanning, Fu Beichen stood at the main gate, his gaze sweeping over the sea of black cars before him, his pupils contracting sharply. His eyes scanned the Rolls-Royces, then finally landed on Jiang Jinshan. As the president of the Fu Group, he naturally recognized Jiang Jinshan, the richest man in the country, the head of the Jiang Group, the man who held half of the nation's economic lifeline in his hands. Last year, when the Fu Group wanted to negotiate a partnership with the Jiang Group, Fu Beichen personally visited 3 times and couldn't even get a meeting with Jiang Jinshan. Now, this man he couldn't even get an audience with stood at his doorstep, holding his wife. Fu Beichen's Adam's apple bobbed up and down, his lips moved, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. Jiang Jinshan released me and turned to face Fu Beichen. He was half a head shorter than Fu Beichen, but the moment his gaze fell on Fu Beichen, the latter involuntarily stepped back half a step. That look was too heavy, like a mountain pressing down. You're Fu Beichen. Jiang Jinshan's voice wasn't loud, even calm, but every word carried the weight of 1,000 pounds. Fu Beichen took a deep breath, straightened his suit collar, and tried to steady his voice. Mr. Jiang, I didn't know Wanning was your daughter. This matter, you didn't know. Jiang Jinshan cut him off, suddenly letting out a laugh. There was no warmth in that smile, it was cold as a poisoned blade. You didn't know she was my daughter, so you could whip her 20 times in the ancestral hall for the woman you keep outside. Fu Beichen's face turned a sickly green. He opened his mouth, but before he could explain, Jiang Jinshan continued, your Fu family has quite the rules. Family punishment, whipping. I raised my daughter in the palm of my hand for 20 years, she married into your Fu family to be beaten by you. His voice grew colder with each word, the last ones practically ground out through gritted teeth. Behind Fu Beichen, Lin Wanwan suddenly dropped to her knees with a thud. She knelt on the threshold of the Fu family's old mansion, clutching her stomach, tears streaming down her face like broken pearls, crying pitifully, Mr. Jiang, it's all my fault. I was wrong. I shouldn't have liked Beichen. I shouldn't have gotten pregnant with his child. Please don't blame Beichen. Blame me if you must. She sobbed heart-wrenchingly, as if she had suffered the greatest injustice. Jiang Jinshan glanced down at her, his gaze pausing for a moment on her slightly swollen belly. Then he looked away, as if he had seen something filthy, not even wanting to spare a second glance. Uncle Chen, yes, sir. Look into this Miss Lin's background. Uncle Chen bowed slightly. Yes, sir. Lin Wanwan's sobbing stopped abruptly. Tears still clung to her face, but a flicker of panic flashed through her eyes, so fast it was almost impossible to catch. Check me for what? I'm an innocent girl. What right do you have to check me? No one answered her. Jiang Jinshan took my hand, his voice softening again. Come on, let's go home with your dad. I nodded. Just as we turned to leave, Fu Beichen suddenly rushed forward, Wanning. He bypassed Jiang Jinshan and blocked me directly. His eyes were bloodshot, staring at me as if trying to bore a hole through me. You can't leave. His voice was hoarse, almost cracking. We're married. We're legally husband and wife. You can't just walk away like this. I looked at him, this man I had served with all my heart for 3 years, this man who ordered 20 lashes on me in the ancestral hall, this man who got another woman pregnant and blamed it all on me. Now he stood before me, saying we were legally married. Fu Beichen, my voice was calm. When you ordered those 20 lashes on me, did you remember we were legally married? His face turned pale. When you held Lin Wanwan and let her flaunt herself in front of me, did you remember we were legally married? His lips began to tremble. When you had a child with her outside and let her show up with her belly to provoke me, did you remember we were legally married? Each sentence hit like a slap, striking Fu Beichen's face hard. His body swayed, his face drained of all color. Wanting, I move. 2 words, clean and sharp. Fu Beichen didn't budge. Jiang Jinshan tilted his head slightly, and 2 bodyguards immediately stepped forward, grabbing Fu Beichen's arms on either side. What are you doing? Let me go. Fu Beichen struggled, but his strength was no match for these 2 trained guards. They dragged him aside. He was pinned against a pillar, his suit covered in dust, his hair a mess, his tie crooked, utterly disheveled. I took a step forward, then paused. I didn't turn around, only slightly tilted my face, glancing at him from the corner of my eye. Fu Beichen, remember this day. Remember how you, for a Lin Wanwan, personally pushed me out of the Fu family's gate, because from today on, you'll spend the rest of your life regretting it. After saying that, I walked toward the motorcade without looking back. Uncle Chen opened the door of the lead Rolls-Royce, and I bent down to get in. The leather seats were soft and warm, and the car was filled with a faint scent of sandalwood. The signature smell of my father's car. When I was a child, I could smell that scent at the school gate every time I got out. No matter how busy he was, my father would always pick me up. He'd sit in the back seat reading documents, while I squeezed next to him, chattering about school. Though his eyes never left the papers, the corners of his mouth always held a smile. Those memories felt like a lifetime ago. Jiang Jinshan sat down beside me, and the moment the door closed, it shut out all the noise outside. The motorcade slowly began to move. Through the window, I saw Fu Beichen collapse to the ground after the guards released him. His suit was crumpled, his hair plastered to his forehead, his eyes vacant as he stared at my car. Lin Wanwan knelt beside him, reaching out to help him up, but he shoved her away. She froze for a moment, then covered her face and wept. The car turned the corner, and the Fu family's old mansion vanished from sight. I pulled my gaze back, leaned into the seat, and closed my eyes, wanting. My father's voice sounded beside me. The bruise on your wrist. Did he grab you? I opened my eyes and looked down at my wrist. The purple-blue finger marks were clear, imprinted on my skin like ugly scars. Jiang Jinshan was silent for 3 seconds, then he said to Uncle Chen, "Call lawyer Zhang, have him come to the house immediately. Also, pull up all of the Fu Group's records from the last 3 years. I want to see them by tonight." Uncle Chen acknowledged and immediately dialed. I turned to look at my father. His profile was tense, his jawline sharp as a blade, a storm brewing in his eyes. The last time I saw that expression was 10 years ago, when someone kidnapped me and my mother. The kidnappers demanded a 5 billion ransom. My father raised the money overnight and got us back. Then within 3 days, he wiped out the kidnapper and the entire network behind him. Rumor had it that the kidnapper ended up kneeling before my father, banging his head on the ground, begging for mercy until it bled. My father only said one thing: "Touch me, fine. Touch my family, no, now." That same expression was on his face. "Dad." Jiang Jinshan turned to look at me, the storm in his eyes instantly softening into tender concern. "What is it?" "Wanting. I want a divorce." The moment those 4 words left my mouth, I felt the stone that had been pressing on my chest for 3 years finally loosen. Jiang Jinshan took my hand. His palm was dry and warm, wrapping my icy fingers completely. "Divorce. Dad will help you get it." His voice was soft, but every word struck like a nail driven into steel. "And not just that, we'll make sure Fu Beichen knows what happens when you mess with Jiang Jinshan's daughter." The motorcade sped along the highway. 100 Rolls-Royces lined up like a black dragon, causing passing cars to slow down and take photos, and I leaned against my father's shoulder, closing my eyes. 3 years. Finally, I didn't have to bear it alone anymore. Chapter 3, The Identity of the Richest Man's Daughter. The Jiang family villa sat halfway up the mountain in the northern part of the city, the entire mountain being private Jiang property. The motorcade slowly ascended the winding mountain road, lined with French plane trees whose canopies intertwined above, forming a green tunnel. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the car windows. It had been 3 years since I last traveled this road. 3 years ago, when I carried my suitcase down the mountain, I took a taxi. The driver glanced at me several times through the rearview mirror, probably wondering why a young lady living in a place like this would leave by cab. I didn't explain, he didn't ask. As the car rounded the last bend, the full view of the Jiang family villa appeared before me. It was a 3,000 square meter Chinese-style courtyard, with white walls and black tiles, flying eaves and upturned corners, nestled among a grove of bamboo. The layout had been personally designed by a master craftsman from Suzhou that my father had invited back then. Every brick, every tile, every blade of grass held meaning. The motorcade stopped in front of the main building. Uncle Chen stepped out first and opened the door for me. The moment my feet touched the ground, I saw 2 rows of people standing at the entrance of the main building: the butler, the chef, the gardener, the cleaning lady, the security personnel. Dozens of people from the Jiang household, all lined up neatly at the door, every single one of them with red-rimmed eyes. "Welcome home, eldest miss." Dozens of voices rang out in unison, echoing through the mountains. I spotted Wang Ma. Wang Ma was my nanny. She had been working for the Jiang family since I was 1 month old, raising me from a baby. 3 years ago, when I left, she had clung to my hand, crying her heart out, saying that if I left, she wouldn't want to live anymore. Now she stood at the front of the crowd, her hair more than half gray compared to 3 years ago. The wrinkles on her face deeper, she stared at me, her lips trembling, tears streaming down her face in a flood. "Eldest miss, my eldest miss is back." I walked quickly over and wrapped my arms around her. "Wang Ma, I'm home." Wang Ma couldn't speak through her sobs. She just patted my back over and over, the same way she used to soothe me to sleep when I was little. Jiang Jinshan stood nearby, watching the scene, the corners of his eyes slightly moist. But he quickly composed himself and instructed Uncle Chen, "Have Lawyer Zhang wait for me in the study." Then he turned to me, his voice softening, warning, "Go rest in your room first. Wang Ma cleans your room every day. Nothing inside has been moved." I nodded. I walked through the familiar front hall, past the corridor lined with calligraphy and paintings, and stopped in front of my own door. The moment I pushed it open, time seemed to flow backward 3 years. Every single thing in the room was exactly where it had been. On the nightstand sat the crystal ball my father gave me for my 18th birthday. The bookshelf was filled with the books I had read since childhood. The pothose on the windowsill had grown much more lush than 3 years ago, its vines hanging down like a green waterfall. On the wall hung a photograph, a picture of me and my father. In the photo, I was 16, wearing a school uniform, my hair tied in a ponytail, my eyes curved into crescent moons from smiling. My father stood behind me, one hand resting on my shoulder, a rare full-toothed grin on his face. That was the 3rd year after my mother passed away. It was the first time my father had smiled so happily. I walked over to the bed and sat down, my fingers brushing over the sheets. The cotton fabric was washed clean, carrying the scent of sun-dried air. Wang Ma must have been washing and changing them every single day, waiting for me for 3 years. A knock came from outside the door. "Eldest miss, Lawyer Zhang has arrived. The master requests your presence in the study." The study was at the end of the 2nd floor hallway, where my father handled his business affairs. When I pushed the door open, my father was sitting behind the rosewood desk, and across from him sat a middle-aged man with gold-rimmed glasses. "Lawyer Zhang." I gave a slight nod. Lawyer Zhang stood up, his expression respectful and serious. "Eldest miss, you've suffered." His tone carried genuine concern. Lawyer Zhang was the Jiang family's chief legal counsel. Having worked with my father for over 20 years, he was practically an elder who had watched me grow up. I sat down on the sofa, and my father handed me a cup of hot tea. "Lawyer Zhang, wants a divorce." Lawyer Zhang nodded and pulled a file out of his briefcase. "Eldest miss, I've done a preliminary review of your marital relationship with Fu Beichen. You registered your marriage 3 years ago without signing a prenuptial agreement. According to the law, joint marital property should be divided equally." "I don't want his money." I cut off Lawyer Zhang's words. Lawyer Zhang paused for a moment, then looked at Jiang Jinshan. Jiang Jinshan didn't say anything. He just held his teacup and looked at me. "Not a single cent from the Fu family," I said, my voice very calm. "I just want the divorce." Lawyer Zhang hesitated, carefully choosing his words. "Eldest miss, if you voluntarily give up property division, the other side might interpret it legally as you admitting fault." Lawyer Zhang. Jiang Jinshan finally spoke. He set down his teacup. The bottom of the cup tapped against the desktop with a soft click. "Wanting doesn't want his money, but that doesn't mean our Jiang family will let this go. Write 0 in the property division section of the divorce agreement. That's fine, but I want you to prepare another plan outside of that agreement." Lawyer Zhang immediately sat up straight. "Please go ahead, Mr. Jiang." Jiang Jinshan tapped his fingers twice lightly on the desk. "I want the Fu Group's stock price to fall below its issue price within 1 month. I want all assets under Fu Beichen's name to be frozen. I want the Fu family's 3 generations of accumulated wealth to turn into ours, little by little." He said all this in a very calm tone, as if he were discussing the weather, but sweat had already begun to bead on Lawyer Zhang's forehead. "Mr. Jiang, this will require mobilizing a massive amount of funds and resources. Money is not a problem." Jiang Jinshan cut off Lawyer Zhang's words and turned to look at me. "What I want is to make Fu Beichen remember one thing. Marrying my daughter was the greatest fortune of his life. Losing my daughter was the greatest retribution of his life." The study fell silent for 3 seconds. Lawyer Zhang took a deep breath and closed the folder in his hands. "I understand, Mr. Jiang. I'll start preparing the plan immediately." After Lawyer Zhang left, only my father and I remained in the study. The setting sun streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, dyeing the entire study the color of amber. My father sat in the light, the silver strands in his hair gleaming. He was looking at a document, his brow slightly furrowed. I suddenly noticed that his left hand was trembling slightly. That was a detail I had never seen when I was a child. 3 years ago, his hand had been as steady as iron when he signed documents. Now, there was a tremor that came with age. He had grown old. For the 3 years I spent cooking congee and ironing shirts for Fu Beichin, he had been aging little by little in places I couldn't see. Dad, he looked up. I'm sorry. The moment those 2 words left my lips, my nose stung again. Jiang Jinshan put down his documents, stood up, and walked over to me. He bent down, placed both hands on my shoulders, and looked me straight in the eyes, his gaze serious and unwavering, warning. You have nothing to be sorry for to your father. His voice was low and gentle. It's your father who owes you an apology. Back then, when you wanted to marry, I shouldn't have stopped you, but even worse, I knew you were living poorly in the Fu family, yet I refused to visit you out of pride. His eyes reddened. 3 years, a full 3 years, and every single night I dreamed of you. I dreamed you were cold and hungry in the Fu household, dreamed you were bullied and crying in a corner, but I just couldn't swallow my pride and go find you. A tear slipped down from the corner of his eye, landing on his dark gray Zhongshan suit, soaking into a dark, damp spot. Warning, your father was wrong. I wrapped my arms around his neck, burying my face in the crook of his shoulder like I did when I was a child. He still carried that faint scent of sandalwood, the same smell as in the car, the same smell that filled my entire childhood. Dad, I don't blame you. We just held each other like that, father and daughter, neither of us speaking. Outside the window, the setting sun sank inch by inch, dyeing the sky a deep orange. After a long time, my father released me, wiped the corner of his eyes, and transformed back into the dignified richest man. All right, no more crying and sniffling. What kind of behavior is that? He cleared his throat, turned around, and walked back behind his desk to sit down. Go rest in your room first. For dinner, Aunt Wang has made your favorite braised pork belly. At the door, I glanced back at him. He had already lowered his head to look at the documents again, his shadow stretching long and thin in the sunset. I knew he didn't want me to see his eyes still red. Aunt Wang's braised pork belly tasted exactly as I remembered, rich but not greasy, melting in the mouth, every piece glazed in a shiny, dark sauce. I ate 2 full bowls of rice, scraping the plate clean of every drop of sauce. Aunt Wang stood beside me, watching me eat, her face crinkled with smiles, her mouth repeating, eat more, look how thin the young miss has gotten. After dinner, I went back to my room and soaked in a hot bath. Rose petals floated in the tub, and as the hot water rose over my shoulders, my whole body relaxed. For 3 years, I had never once taken a bath in the Fu household. Their bathtub was reserved for Fu Yuqing. She said she found it dirty if an outsider used it. I could only shower with a handheld nozzle, and in winter, when the cold water pipe froze, I had to boil water and mix it with hot water to wash. Thinking back now, how foolish was I back then, believing that if I just endured enough, they would accept me. My phone suddenly vibrated. I picked it up and looked. It was a message from Fu Beichin, warning, let's talk, please. I didn't reply. 5 minutes later, another message came. I know I was wrong. Give me another chance. Okay, I'll handle Lin Wanwan's situation. Come back, and we'll start over. I stared at the words on the screen, and suddenly it all felt so ridiculous. Start over. When he ordered the 20 lashes in the ancestral hall, did he think about starting over when he held Lin Wanwan in his arms and let her flaunt her belly in front of me? Did he think about starting over when you let Fu Yuqing treat me like a maid for 3 years? Did he think about starting over? I flipped my phone face down on the bed and closed my eyes. In my ears, my father's words from earlier today at the Fu family mansion gate echoed. You can touch me, but touch my family, no. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. Fu Beichin, do you think sending 2 messages and saying I was wrong is enough? No, this is only the beginning. Chapter 4, the CEO collapses in public. Fu Beichin called all night long. My phone screen was flooded with his messages, from warning, I was wrong, to please give me one chance, from I'll handle Lin Wanwan's child, to I'll do anything you ask. I read every single one, and I didn't reply to a single one. At 3 in the morning, he sent a voice call request. It rang for dozens of seconds before automatically disconnecting. Then he called again, and again, 27 times in total. Finally, I blocked him at 7 the next morning. Uncle Chen knocked on my door. Young miss, the master requests your presence at breakfast. Also, Fu Beichin's car has been parked at the foot of the mountain all night. Security is asking whether to escort him away. The foot of the mountain. I walked to the window and looked down. Sure enough, at the entrance to the winding mountain road, a black Maybach was parked. The engine was off, a layer of dew on the roof. Clearly sitting there for a long time, next to the car stood A man, his dark gray suit was wrinkled, his tie askew, his hair a mess like a bird's nest. He leaned against the hood, staring up at the direction of the Jiang family villa, motionless. It was Fu Beichen. What did he say? I asked Uncle Chen. He says he must see you, and he won't leave until he does. Uncle Chen's voice carried no emotion. Security asked if they should drag him away. I said I'd check with the young miss first. I glanced at the figure standing in the morning mist. For 3 years. He had never waited for me. Every day, I waited for him to get off work, to come home, to eat dinner, to look at me once. The food would cool down, I'd reheat it, it would cool again, and finally, I'd dump it in the trash. When he came home, he carried the scent of another woman's perfume, not even bothering to explain now. He was finally willing to wait. Too bad, it was too late. Don't drive him away. I turned my gaze away, my voice flat. Let him wait. After breakfast, lawyer Zhang arrived with the divorce agreement. The document was 20 pages long, every clause written in clear detail. In the property division section, I had requested a single word, 0. I picked up a pen and signed my name in the signature line, Jiang Wanning. The 3 words were written with perfect precision, every stroke firm and unhesitating. Lawyer Zhang put away the agreement, weighing his words carefully before asking, Miss, when do you plan to give it to him? Today. I stood up and glanced out the window. At the foot of the mountain, that Maybach was still parked there. Fu Beichen remained in the same position, leaning against the hood, as if locked in some silent battle with himself. I'll deliver it in person. Jiang Jinshan set down his chopsticks and looked up at me. Want your father to go with you? No. I grabbed my coat and draped it over my shoulders. This is between him and me. It's my fight to finish. Uncle Chen arranged for a car to take me down the mountain. It wasn't a Rolls-Royce, it was a silver-gray Bentley. The driver was a man in his 30s with a buzz cut and steady eyes, clearly a veteran. The car wound its way down the mountain road. The morning mist hadn't fully lifted yet, and the pines among the hills appeared and disappeared in the haze. The air was thick with the fresh scent of pine needles mixed with earth. 3 years. For the first time, I felt like breathing was such an effortless thing. The moment the Bentley reached the foot of the mountain, Fu Beichen saw it immediately. He straightened up abruptly, his eyes locked onto the car window. Through the dark-tinted film, he couldn't see me, but he knew I was inside. He rushed to the front of the car, spreading his arms wide to block the way. The driver hit the brakes, and the Bentley came to a smooth stop. The window rolled down slowly. Fu Beichen and I were less than 2 meters apart. He looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, stubble darkening his jawline. His suit was wrinkled like a piece of pickled vegetable, his tie twisted around to his shoulder. If the shareholders of the Fu Group saw him like this, the stock price would probably drop another 2 points. Wanting, his voice was hoarse, like sandpaper scraping across wood. You finally agreed to see me. I didn't get out of the car. Instead, I took the divorce agreement from my bag and handed it through the window. Sign it. Fu Beichen looked down at the agreement, the 5 big characters on the cover. Divorce agreement, stabbed into his eyes like 5 knives. His hands began to tremble. Wanting, I won't sign it. His voice carried a trembling, almost pleading tone. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you like that. Shouldn't have listened to Lin Wanwan. Shouldn't have ordered them to hit you. Give me one more chance. Just one, okay? I looked at that face, the face that had once made my soul ache with longing, and suddenly felt nothing but strangeness. For 3 years, I had fantasized countless times about seeing that look in his eyes, fantasized that he would regret it, apologize, say that he actually cared about me. Now that the fantasy had come true, I felt absolutely nothing. Fu Beichen, do you know what kind of life I've lived in your house for the past 3 years? My voice was calm, as if I were telling someone else's story. Your sister, Fu Yuqing, I hand-washed her underwear. She said the washing machine couldn't get them clean enough, that they had to be scrubbed by hand. In the dead of winter, I crouched in the bathroom, scrubbing her clothes, my fingers swollen and red from the cold. She stood at the door eating sunflower seeds, watching me, telling me to wash them again because they weren't clean enough. Fu Beichen's face twitched. The meals you ate every day, I cooked them. You liked steamed sea bass, so I learned 3 different ways to make it, but you never once asked what I like to eat. Do you even know what I hate the most? His mouth opened, but no answer came. Cilantro. I let out a faint smile. I hate cilantro. I can't even stand the smell, but every time I cooked and put cilantro in the dishes, you never noticed, because you never once paid attention to what I avoided picking up with my chopsticks, wanting. And another thing, I cut him off. Every time your mother came over, she had to check my phone. She said a woman married into the Fu family couldn't have secrets. She went through my WeChat contacts one by one, deleting every male friend she found, my college classmates, my former colleagues, all gone. I told you about it. Do you remember what you said? Fu Beichen's Adam's apple bobbed, but no words came out. You said, Mom means well, listen to her. I repeated those words, my voice as light as a feather. Fu Beichen, 3 years. I was your family's maid for 3 years, and in the end, what did I get? You ordering 20 lashes in the ancestral hall. I pushed open the car door and stepped out. Standing in front of him, the morning mist had mostly cleared. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the pine trees, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow on the ground. And now you're telling me you were wrong. I slapped the divorce agreement against his chest. Fu Beichen, your wrong came too late. His hands clutched the agreement weakly, his knuckles white from the strain. He looked at me, and something in his eyes was shattering. I won't sign it. His voice suddenly turned stubborn. I won't sign. You're my wife. We got married. I'm not getting a divorce. I looked at him and suddenly smiled. That smile froze him completely. Fu Beichen, do you think you have a choice? I pulled out my phone, opened a video, and turned the screen toward him. On the screen was the press conference hall of the Jiang Group headquarters. Lawyer Zhang was speaking at the podium. Behind him, on the massive screen, several lines of text were displayed. The Jiang Group has officially launched a full-scale acquisition plan for the Fu Group. As of this morning's market open, through secondary market purchases and block trades with major shareholders, the Jiang Group has accumulated 29.3% of the Fu Group's shares. Combined with shares held by the Jiang Group's 3 subsidiaries, the Jiang Group currently holds effective control of 41% of the Fu Group's equity. Lawyer Zhang's voice came through the phone, calm and clear. At the same time, the Jiang Group has submitted a tender offer application to the regulatory authorities for the remaining shares of the Fu Group. It is expected that within the next 10 trading days, the Jiang Group will become the absolute controlling shareholder of the Fu Group. Fu Beichen's face turned white as paper, drained of all color, like something bleached beyond recognition. You all. His hands shook violently. The divorce agreement slipped through his fingers, scattering across the ground. What I said to you yesterday, remember today? I bent down, picked up the agreement from the ground, and placed it back in his hands. Did you think I was just venting? Fu Beichen's body swayed. He steadied himself against the roof of the Bentley, barely managing to stay upright. 41%. His lips trembled. Impossible. How could you have moved this fast? Fu Beichen, you know nothing about the Jiang family's true strength. I handed him the pen. Sign this agreement, and I'll let the Jiang Corporation retain 10% of your shares. You can stay as a figurehead shareholder in Fu Corporation, with no real power, if you don't sign. I glanced at the stock market on my phone screen. Fu Corporation stock had already hit the daily limit down. If you don't sign, when the market opens on Monday, Fu Corporation won't be yours anymore. The company your father left you, the legacy your grandfather built, all of it will bear the Jiang name. Fu Beichen's entire body seemed to have its spine ripped out. He slid down against the Bentley's body, inch by inch. Finally, he collapsed onto the ground. The morning dew still clung to the earth, damp and cold. His expensive suit trousers sat directly in the muddy water, but he no longer cared. He just looked up at me, his eyes filled with utter despair, wanting. Do you have to be this ruthless? I looked down at him. This man, whom I had knelt to serve for 3 years, now sat in the mud, looking up and asking me if I was being too ruthless. Ruthless? I crouched down, meeting his eyes at the same level. Fu Beichen, when you ordered 20 lashes for me in the ancestral hall, were you being ruthless? When you let Lin Wanwan stand before me with her belly swollen, were you being ruthless? When your sister treated me like a servant for 3 years, and you never said a single word, were you being ruthless? Each word stabbed into his eyes like a needle. His lips quivered violently, his Adam's apple bobbed up and down, but he couldn't utter a single sound. Sign. I shoved the pen into his hand. He looked down at the divorce agreement, his hand shaking so much he could barely hold the pen. A drop of water landed on the paper, spreading the ink. It was his tear. Fu Beichen was crying. This man, who had always been aloof and cold in front of me, sat in the muddy water, crying in front of the driver and bodyguards. He scrawled his name in the signature line, crooked and uneven. As the last stroke fell, he seemed drained of all life. The pen slipped from his hand and rolled into the mud. I picked up the agreement. confirmed the signature was correct, then turned and walked toward the car door, warning. His voice came from behind me, hoarse and barely recognizable. Did you, even just a little bit, truly like me? My hand paused on the car door handle. Yes, I didn't turn around, but that was in the past. As the car door closed, I heard a suppressed, guttural roar from behind me, like a beast trapped in a cage. The Bentley turned around and drove down the mountain. In the rearview mirror, Fu Beichen still sat in that muddy patch, the cover of the divorce agreement scattered around him. The morning light illuminated him brightly, but his shadow shrank into a tiny ball. I withdrew my gaze and hugged the divorce agreement to my chest. 3 years, finally over. Chapter 5, The Truth Behind 3 Years of Concealment. The car didn't head straight back to the Jiang family villa. Instead, it drove to a cemetery on the eastern edge of the city. I came here to see someone, my mother. The cemetery was built halfway up a mountain, facing the sea. This was the spot my mother had chosen herself. She said she loved the sound of the waves. I climbed the stone steps one by one, holding a bouquet of white lilies in my hands. These were my mother's favorite flowers. When I was a child, our garden was filled with lilies. Every summer, the whole yard was steeped in their sweet, pure fragrance. My mother's grave was at the very top row. The white marble headstone glowed faintly in the sunlight. Engraved on it was her name, Lin Suxin. In the photo, my mother was 45 years old, wearing a qipao, her hair pinned up immaculately, a gentle smile on her lips. That picture was taken a year before she passed, before illness had withered her into a shadow of her former self. I placed the lilies in front of the grave and knelt down. Mom, I've come to see you. The sea breeze blew up from the foot of the mountain, making the lily petals tremble softly. I haven't been here for 3 years. You must have blamed me. I reached out and touched my mother's photo on the headstone. My fingertips met the cold stone surface, and my eyes instantly reddened. Mom, I got divorced today. For 3 years, I hid my identity and married into the Fu family, hoping to find the kind of love you had for Dad. Whether Dad had money or not, you stayed with him. When his business failed and he was drowning in debt, you didn't leave. When he was cheated out of everything and went bankrupt, you still didn't leave. You said you loved the man himself, not his money. I wanted to meet someone like that too. My voice began to choke, so I never told him I was Jiang Jinshan's daughter. I thought, if he could genuinely like me without knowing who I really was, then that affection would be real. But I was wrong, Mom. He never liked me, whether I had money or not. He never liked me. Tears fell one by one onto the stone slab in front of the grave, leaving dark, damp marks. 3 years ago, I first saw Fu Beichen at a charity gala. That day, I was wearing a plain work uniform, tasked with guiding guests at the registration desk. When Fu Beichen walked in, everyone swarmed around him like moths to a flame. He didn't even glance at me, not until I was accidentally knocked over by a drunken guest, and the registration booklet scattered everywhere. Everyone stepped around me, but only he stopped and bent down to help me pick up the scattered papers. He said one thing, "Be careful," just 3 words. And I remembered them for 3 years. Later, I found out he was the young president of Fu Corporation, single, a bit cold but with a decent reputation. I thought, a man willing to bend down and help a staff member pick up things couldn't have a bad heart, so I staged a chance encounter, added him on WeChat, and slowly started chatting. 2 months later, he proposed. He said, "I think you're suitable, not I like you, but I think you're suitable." I was lost in happiness at the time and didn't notice the cruelty of those words. I wiped my tears, my voice steadying as I speak. Mom, do you think I'm stupid? But it's okay. I've been foolish once, and I won't be foolish again. The wind picks up, rustling the pine trees in the cemetery. A few lily petals fall, drifting down the hillside. I stand and take one last look at my mother's photo. I'm leaving now, Mom. The next time I visit, I'll be the old Jiang wanting again. As I walk out of the cemetery, Uncle Chen waits by the car, his face grim. Miss, something happened with Fu Beichen. What happened after you left? Lin Wanwan went to the Fu family mansion. They argued. Paparazzi caught it all on camera. Uncle Chen hands me his phone. The screen shows a shaky, clearly stolen video, but the audio is clear. In the Fu family courtyard, Lin Wanwan stands before Fu Beichen in a red dress, her belly prominent, one hand on her hip, the other pointing at his nose, her makeup perfect but twisted. Fu Beichen, you said you'd marry me. Now that Jiang Wanning is gone, when will we get the certificate? Fu Beichen sits on a stone bench, his hair messy, his suit wrinkled, looking like a pile of mud. He doesn't even lift his head. I don't want to talk about this right now. don't want to talk, Lin Wanwan's voice screeches, almost piercing the screen. I'm carrying your child, and you say you don't want to talk. Are you still thinking about Jiang Wanning? She's already bought your company, and you're still pining for her. Fu Beichen suddenly stands, his eyes bloodshot. Lin Wanwan, you came to my house on your knees, begging, wanting to let you go. You told me you were pregnant, that I had to take responsibility. Now Wanning is gone. The Fu group is gone. Are you satisfied? Lin Wanwan steps back, startled by his sudden fury, but quickly stiffens her neck and retorts, Fu Beichen, what do you mean? Are you blaming me now? Did I make you beat her in the ancestral hall? You gave that order yourself. You ordered 20 lashes to protect me. That's not on me. Fu Beichen's body sways. Her words cut like a knife, stabbing into his deepest wound. Yes, he gave the order. No one forced him. He did it to protect Lin Wanwan, to show his authority in front of her, and he personally pushed Jiang Wanning away. The video ends there. This video went online 10 minutes ago. Uncle Chen says, his voice low, it's already hit 3 million views. #1 trending. I glance at the trending list. #1. Fu Group CEO cheating scandal. #2. Billionaire heiress secretly married for 3 years. Domestic violence. #3. Fu Beichen and Lin Wanwan tearing each other apart. #4. Jiang Group acquires Fu Group. The top 4 are all about this. The comments are exploding. This Fu Beichen is brain damaged, right? Marrying a billionaire heiress and still cheating. Laughing my ass off. He beat his wife for a mistress, and it turns out the wife is a billionaire heiress. This twist, I love it. Lin Wanwan's red dress is hilarious. Going to a fight dressed like a bride. Someone dug up that Lin Wanwan used to work at a nightclub. You know what that means. Jiang Wanning is so pitiful. She hid her identity, married him, became a maid, and then got whipped. Upstairs, the whipping didn't happen. The Jiang family arrived just in time, otherwise, it would have been worse. Fu Group stocks hit the floor today. Deserved. I hand the phone back to Uncle Chen, my face calm. Don't worry about it. Let them tear each other apart. Uncle Chen hesitates, then speaks again. One more thing, we've dug up Lin Wanwan's background. Go on. Lin Wanwan, 28, originally named Lin Zhaodi. 3 years ago, she worked as a hostess at the Imperial Court Club. She met Fu Beichen at a business dinner, then quit the club and claimed to be a returned overseas socialite. And the child is Fu Beichen's, DNA confirmed. But Uncle Chen pauses. We found out that early in her pregnancy, she privately contacted a lawyer, asking about how to maximize benefits. As an unmarried mother, the lawyer recorded the conversation. A faint smile curls at the corner of my mouth. Lin Wanwan, you planned this well. Got the recording? Yes. Keep it. We'll use it when the time comes. Uncle Chen nods and opens the car door for me. The car drives away from the cemetery, along the coastal road. Outside the window, the sea sparkles, seagulls skimming the surface, their wingtips tracing ripples. My phone buzzes again. It's a message from Fu Yuqing, sister-in law. Please, let my brother see you. He really knows he's wrong. He hasn't eaten or drunk anything in 2 days. He's withered away. Sister-in-law, 3 years, and she never once called me that. At home, she called me hey. In front of her friends, she called me our maid. In her phone, my contact name was Fu family servant Jiang. Now, she's finally learned to say sister-in-law. I type 2 words back, not worthy, then I block her too. The car turns onto a mountain road, the shadows of plain trees racing backward. I lean back in my seat. Closing my eyes, all the images from the past 3 years flash before me like a lantern show. Fu Yuqing putting her feet on the coffee table, demanding I cut her toenails. Fu Beichen eating 3 bites of food and putting down his chopsticks, saying he had no appetite. Lin Wanwan kneeling before me with a swollen belly, a smile on her lips, and the rattan whip raised high in the ancestral hall. These images were once thorns in my heart. Now, they are the strength that drives me forward, miss. Uncle Chen's voice comes from the front seat. The old master asked me to tell you, tomorrow's board meeting of the Jiang Group. He wants you to attend. I open my eyes. Me, attend the board meeting? Yes, miss. The old master said the Jiang Group will be yours in the future. It's time for you to start taking over. Outside the car window, the white walls and black tiles of the Jiang family villa flickered in and out of view through the shadows of the trees. 3 years ago, I gave up everything and left this place. Now, I'm going to take back everything I lost. Piece by Piece. Chapter 6. Jiang Jinshan's Fury. When I returned to the Jiang family villa, my father was sitting in his study, reading a document. His face was terrible, so terrible that Uncle Chen stopped at the doorway and didn't dare follow me in. I walked into the study and sat down across from him. Father looked up at me for a moment, then pushed the document across the table. Take a look at this. I picked it up and flipped through it. It was a detailed investigation report. The subject was Lin Wanwan. It recorded her entire experience from the time she entered the Imperial Club as a hostess at 19, all the way up to before she met Fu Beichen. 23 pages in total. Every single page was shocking. During her time at the Imperial Club, Lin Wanwan had improper relationships with 7 married entrepreneurs in succession. 3 of them divorced for her. 2 of them she extorted huge breakup fees from by claiming to be pregnant. 1 of them she caused such a scene at his company's shareholder meeting that he was kicked out of the business he founded himself. Her methods were exactly the same: pretend to be pregnant, or actually get pregnant and then deliberately miscarry, then use the line "you killed our child" to emotionally blackmail and psychologically manipulate. The most terrifying part was, she never failed in any of this. Every single man was wrapped around her finger. Fu Beichen was the 8th. One page of the report specifically analyzed Lin Wanwan's timeline for approaching Fu Beichen. On her last night at the Imperial Club, she was arranged by the club manager to enter Fu Beichen's private room. That night, Fu Beichen drank a lot. When he woke up the next morning, Lin Wanwan was lying right next to him, and that club manager was Lin Wanwan's distant cousin. 3 months later, Lin Wanwan showed up at Fu Beichen's doorstep with a pregnancy test report, and that time period happened to be the 2nd wedding anniversary of me and Fu Beichen. Finished reading, my father's voice was as cold as ice shards. I nodded and placed the report back on the table. Dad, does Fu Beichen know about the contents of this report? He doesn't. Jiang Jinshan picked up his teacup and took a sip. His hand trembled slightly, not from age, but from rage. If he knew, he wouldn't have kicked you out of the house for this woman. He set the cup down. The bottom hit the table with a dull thud. But just because he doesn't know doesn't mean he's not wrong. Wrong for not distinguishing right from wrong. Wrong for letting lust cloud his judgment. Wrong for bullying my daughter, Jiang Jinshan's daughter. He stood up and walked to the window, turning his back to me. The setting sun stretched his shadow long across the carpet, like a silent mountain, warning, your father has done a lot of things in this life. Good things, bad things too. But there's one line I've never crossed. My family. His voice was low, as if ground out from deep in his chest. When your mother left, I promised her 2 things. First, to build the Jiang group big enough so my daughter would never have to worry about food or clothes her whole life. Second, to never let anyone bully my daughter. He turned around. His eyes were bloodshot. I kept the first promise. The second one, I failed for 3 years. Dad, let me finish. He raised his hand to stop me. This report today, I had someone dig it up. While investigating Lin Wanwan, I was just trying to find out her background. I didn't expect to unearth all this. He walked back to the table, picked up the report, and tore it apart page by page. The paper scraps fluttered into the trash can. If I release this stuff, Lin Wanwan will be completely destroyed. Her name will be on the trending list, cursed by millions. Her child, if it's born, will be pointed at and ridiculed for life. She'll never be able to hold her head up again. He looked up at me. There was no hesitation in his eyes. Do you think your father should release it? I looked at the shredded paper in the trash can and was silent for 3 seconds. Release it. One word, crisp and decisive. The corner of Jiang Jinshan's mouth twitched slightly. It was the closest thing to a smile he'd shown all day. That's my girl. He picked up the desk phone and dialed a number. Package all of Lin Wanwan's materials, including the Imperial Club surveillance screenshots, the transfer records with those 7 men, and the club manager's testimony recording, and send them to all mainstream media outlets. Tomorrow morning at 8, I want her name at the top of every trending list. The person on the other end acknowledged. Jiang Jinshan hung up and dialed a second number. Notify the legal department. File a lawsuit against Lin Wanwan for extortion and fraud. Submit the indictment to the court before the end of today. The second call ended. A third call went out. Continue buying up the remaining shares of the Fu Group when the market opens tomorrow. I don't want 51% anymore. I want 67%. Absolute control. Not 1 share less. After the 3 calls, he put the phone back on the table and sat back down in his chair. The whole process took less than 3 minutes. This was Jiang Jinshan, usually as gentle as an old neighbor next door, but once you touched his bottom line, he was so decisive it made your spine crawl. Warning, Tomorrow morning's news is going to be lively. Do you want to watch? Yes, I do, he nodded, picked up his now cold tea, and took a sip. Then go to bed early tonight. Tomorrow, your father will have breakfast with you and watch the news together. When I came out of the study, Aunt Wong was standing in the hallway holding a bowl of white fungus soup. Her eyes were red. Miss, the old master, he hasn't been this angry in years. I took the soup and leaned against the windowsill in the hallway, sipping it slowly. The last time the master was this furious was when the madam fell ill. The hospital said they needed an imported medicine that couldn't be bought domestically. The master made over 300 phone calls, mobilized every connection he had, and forced a shipment from Switzerland by air. Wang Ma wiped the corner of her eye. The day the madam passed, the master locked himself in the study for an entire night. When he came out the next morning, half his hair had turned white. My grip on the bowl tightened slightly. When my mother died, I was away at university in another city. By the time I rushed back, I only caught her final moments. She lay on the hospital bed, thin as a bundle of kindling, but when she saw me enter, she still forced a smile and said, "Wan Ning, you're here, Mom's fine, focus on your studies." That was the last sentence she ever said to me. Later, my father told me that during her final 3 months, the pain kept her awake night after night. But she never once cried out in front of me. She said her daughter was studying far from home and shouldn't be distracted. Wang Ma, I handed her the empty bowl. When my mom left, did she leave any words for me? Wang Ma froze for a moment, her lips quivered, and her eyes grew redder. The madam said her greatest regret in this life was not being able to see the young miss get married. She told the master to be sure to screen the young miss's suitors carefully, not to let her marry someone who... She stopped abruptly. Marry someone who what? Wang Ma bit her lip, as if summoning immense courage to speak, not to let the young miss marry someone who wouldn't treat her well. The hallway fell silent. Outside the window, the sky had completely darkened. The courtyard lights flickered on, casting a warm golden glow over the white walls and black tiles, painting the entire estate like a delicate ink brush painting. I leaned against the windowsill, staring at the lights in the courtyard, and suddenly felt a sharp sting in my nose. Mom, don't worry, from now on, I won't let anyone treat me badly again. That night, I went to bed early and slept deeply. For 3 years, it was the first peaceful sleep I'd ever had in the Fu family home. No need to worry about waking up at 5 in the morning to make congee. No need to dread whether Fu Yiqing would find another excuse to pick a fight. No need to pretend to be asleep when I heard Fu Beichen's footsteps returning home in the middle of the night. I slept like a stone sinking to the bottom of a river, not even a single dream stirring. The next morning at 7 o'clock, Wang Ma knocked on my door right on time. "Young miss, the master is already waiting for you in the dining room. Today's morning news. He says you must come down and watch." The television in the dining room was already on, tuned to the news channel. My father sat at the table, a cup of clear tea and a basket of soup dumplings in front of him. His demeanor was as calm as someone waiting for a long-anticipated movie to begin. "Sit down, eat first." He slid the basket of soup dumplings toward me. I picked one up and took a bite. The broth exploded in my mouth. Wang Ma's signature crab roast soup dumplings. The news anchor began reporting the day's top story. Breaking news from the station. Late last night, a viral expose about Fu Group CEO Fu Beichen and his girlfriend Lin Wanwan swept the internet. The leaked information reveals that Lin Wanwan was originally a hostess at the Imperial Club. In recent years, she used similar tactics to engage in improper relationships with multiple married business leaders and extorted substantial sums of money. The screen showed surveillance footage of Lin Wanwan working at the Imperial Club. Though her face was blurred, her figure and silhouette were unmistakable. Then came bank transfer records, chat screenshots, and audio clips of testimony from the club's manager. One by one, clear as day. Currently, the legal department of Jiang Group has formally submitted a lawsuit to the court, charging Lin Wanwan with extortion and fraud. Meanwhile, Fu Group's stock price has hit its daily limit again at today's opening, with market value down over 60% from last week. The scene cut to the entrance of Fu Group's headquarters. Fu Beichen was surrounded by a swarm of reporters, his face ashen, his suit jacket unbuttoned. The reporters' microphones were practically shoved into his face. "Mr. Fu, were you aware of Lin Wanwan's past? Mr. Fu, have you confirmed that the child Lin Wanwan is carrying is yours? Mr. Fu, Jiang Group has launched a full takeover bid for Fu Group. How will you respond? Fu Beichen's lips moved, but no words came out. His eyes were bloodshot, his entire being looking like a string on the verge of snapping. Finally, security guards rushed out and dragged him away from the crowd of reporters. The frame froze on the moment he was being pulled away. He turned back and looked directly into the camera, that look, like a drowning man watching the last piece of driftwood float away. Jiang Jinshan set down his teacup and wiped the corner of his mouth with a napkin. Wan Ning, yes, this is just the first day. He stood up, straightened the collar of his traditional Chinese tunic, his voice as flat as if he were commenting on the weather. The best is yet to come. Chapter 7. The mistress stripped in public. Lin Wanwan's retribution came faster than I had imagined. On the third day after the news broke, Uncle Chen hurried into the living room. The expression on his face was hard to read, somewhere between grim and satisfied. Young miss, something's happened to Lin Wanwan. He handed me his phone. On the screen was a live stream. The stream's viewer count had already surpassed 8 million. The comments were scrolling so fast they almost obscured the video. In the frame, Lin Wanwan stood in an underground parking garage. She wore a cream-colored knit dress, and her belly was clearly visible, at least 5 or 6 months pregnant. Her hair was a mess, her makeup completely ruined, lipstick smeared down to her chin. Standing across from her was a woman in a black dress, in her 40s, well-maintained, but her face was twisted with a fury that looked like she wanted to devour someone. I recognized that woman. Mrs. Zhou, the owner of Zhou Group. Her husband, Zhou Jiangwo, was the 4th name on Lin Wanwan's list. 3 years ago, Zhou Jiangwo divorced Mrs. Zhou for Lin Wanwan, taking most of the family assets, and the company was nearly crippled in the process. Later, Lin Wanwan disappeared with a severance payment. When Zhou Jiangwo tried to reconcile with his ex-wife, Mrs. Zhou had him chased out with a broom. Now, Mrs. Zhou had found Lin Wanwan. Lin Wanwan, you never thought this day would come, did you? Mrs. Zhou's voice was sharp and piercing, like fingernails scraping across a chalkboard. Behind her stood 4 or 5 women in black, her squad of besties. Lin Wanwan clutched her stomach and backed away, her spine hitting a pillar in the parking lot, nowhere left to retreat. Mrs. Zhou, I don't know you. You've got the wrong person. Don't know me. Mrs. Zhou laughed, a smile more terrifying than tears. 3 years ago, when you were lying in my husband's bed, why didn't you say you didn't know me? When you showed up with a pregnancy report demanding a $2 million hush money from my husband, why didn't you say you didn't know me? The live stream chat exploded instantly. 2 million, holy crap. Is this chick a professional mistress? Go Mrs. Zhou, tear her apart. Hitting is wrong, but I kinda wanna see it. Lin Wanwan's face turned as white as paper, her lips trembling violently. I really didn't. Mr. Zhou gave that to me voluntarily. Voluntarily. Mrs. Zhou stepped forward and grabbed Lin Wanwan by the hair. Lin Wanwan screamed, her whole body yanked down, bent over at the waist. My husband voluntarily gave you 2 million. Do you think your face is worth 2 million? That's extortion, blackmail, taking advantage of someone when they're vulnerable. Mrs. Zhou's voice grew louder and louder, echoing through the entire parking lot. I'm not here to ask for the money back. That 2 million, the Zhou family considers it feeding the dogs. I'm here today to teach you the price of seducing another woman's husband. With those words, she yanked hard. Lin Wanwan's cream-colored knit dress tore open from the collar, a long gash revealing her bra and swollen belly. Lin Wanwan let out a scream, both hands clutching her chest in a desperate shield, but the women behind Mrs. Zhou had already closed in. The sounds of tearing, screaming, and cursing blended into chaos. Lin Wanwan's dress was shredded into strips of cloth, scattered on the ground. She curled up by the pillar, left in nothing but her underwear, the stretch marks on her belly clearly visible. Her face was clawed with several bloody scratches, a chunk of hair torn out, tiny beads of blood oozing from her scalp. The live stream viewer count had surpassed 12 million. The chat was scrolling so fast it was impossible to read. That's too harsh. Sure, Lin Wanwan deserves it, but doing this to a pregnant woman is a bit. Shut up, saint, get out. When she extorted 2 million, you didn't call it harsh. When Jiang Wanning was whipped, you didn't call it harsh. What goes around comes around. I stared at the screen, watching Lin Wanwan curled up on the ground, my face calm. She looked nothing like the pitiful woman who had knelt before me. Pretending I had pushed her, with that smug smile on her lips. I still remembered that smile. Uncle Chen stood beside me, hesitating for a moment before speaking in a low voice. "Miss, should we send someone to stop this? She's carrying a child. If it turns into a fatality, no need." My voice was flat. "Mrs. Zhou isn't stupid. She knows her limits. Those tears look scary, but they're just superficial wounds. If she really wanted to hurt Lin Wanwan, she wouldn't have chosen the underground parking lot, and she wouldn't have kept the live stream running." Uncle Chen paused, then nodded. "On the live stream, Mrs. Zhou crouched down, pinching Lin Wanwan's chin, forcing her to look up. Lin Wanwan, listen carefully. I'm not taking back that 2 million, but the debt you owe me. Today is just the first installment of interest. After you give birth, there will be a second, and a third, as long as you stay in this city. I have all the time in the world to play with you." Slowly, she let go, stood up, and straightened her hair and collar for the camera. Then she turned and walked away with her women, the sharp click of her high heels on the ground, each step like driving a nail. Lin Wanwan was left alone in the parking lot. She curled up by the pillar, covered in nothing but tatters, trembling all over. People stood at a distance, taking photos and videos, but no one came to help. Finally, a security guard from the mall rushed over, draped a work jacket over her, and helped her away. The live stream ended there. I handed the phone back to Uncle Chen. "Send a gift to Mrs. Zhou's side." Uncle Chen blinked in surprise. "What should I send?" "A box of bird's nest. Attach a card with just 3 words. Well done." Uncle Chen's mouth twitched. He lowered his head, acknowledged the order, and turned to carry it out. That night, the recorded clip of the live stream shot to #1 on every platform's trending list. Views exceeded 200 million. The comments section split into 2 factions. One side said Mrs. Zhou had gone too far. "No matter what, you shouldn't lay hands on a pregnant woman." The other side said Lin Wanwan deserved it. She should have known the consequences when she destroyed someone's family. The 2 factions argued for millions of comments, the heat refusing to die down. But one comment rose to the top, with over 500,000 likes. "Stop arguing. Think about Jiang Wanning. When she was framed by Lin Wanwan, ordered by her husband to be whipped, why didn't anyone call that harsh?" Below it, tens of thousands of replies, all with the same line, "Because she's the heiress of a billionaire, so she deserved it." That comment was shared hundreds of thousands of times, and the topic Jiang Wanning's 3 years surged to second on the trending list. Countless people flooded into the Fu Group's official account, demanding Fu Beichen apologize. Fu's PR team scrambled to delete comments, but they couldn't keep up. Hundreds of new comments poured in every second. Finally, they were forced to shut down the comment section, but it was too late. Screenshots were everywhere. The name Fu Beichen was thoroughly ruined. The next morning, while I was learning flower arrangement in the garden with Aunt Wang, Uncle Chen arrived again. "Miss, Lin Wanwan has been taken away by the police." "On what charge?" "Extortion and fraud." The Jiang family's legal department filed the complaint yesterday, and today the warrant was issued. The police searched her rented apartment and found a large amount of evidence, including transfer records and chat logs with the previous 7 victims, as well as her collusion records with that club manager, her cousin. A faint note of barely suppressed satisfaction crept into Uncle Chen's voice. "They say she was still in the hospital for her prenatal checkup when they caught her." The police walked straight into the ultrasound room. She collapsed on the spot, had to be dragged out by 2 female officers, arms hooked under hers, onto the police car. I snipped off an extra leaf from the lily, not lifting my head, and the child in her belly. The hospital arranged for special care. By law, she could have been released on bail during pregnancy, but given the severity of her case and the staggering amount involved, the prosecutor's office directly rejected the bail application. So Lin Wanwan would have to give birth to that child inside the detention center. I placed the trimmed lily into the vase, tilting my head to examine it from both sides. "What about Fu Beichen? Any reaction from him?" Uncle Chen's expression turned subtly complicated. "Fu Beichen went to the detention center this morning, hoping to see Lin Wanwan. Through the glass, she shouted one sentence at him." "What did she shout?" "She said, 'Fu Beichen, you useless piece of trash. This is all your fault. If you divorced your wife and married me sooner, would I have ended up like this?'" My scissors paused midair. Then I laughed, not a cold laugh, a genuinely amused one. "Lin Wanwan, even in death, Had no idea where she went wrong. She thought she lost because Fu Beichen wasn't ruthless enough, because Madame Zhou was too fierce, because the Jiang family was too powerful. The truth was, she lost from the very first step she took. Stolen things are always stolen, no matter how tightly you grip them. In the end, you have to give them back. Miss, there's one more thing. Uncle Chen's voice dropped lower after Fu Beichen left the detention center. He drove onto the Ring Road Expressway and stopped for 40 minutes on the Cross-Sea Bridge in the northern section. I lifted my head. What did he want to do? No one knows. But our car kept tailing him. He stayed on the bridge for 40 minutes, then finally drove off. Uncle Chen paused. Before he drove away, he stood at the edge of the bridge and stared down for a while. The garden fell silent, broken only by the rustle of bamboo leaves in the wind. I set down the scissors and pushed the vase aside. Keep someone on him. Don't let him die. Understood. If he dies, this play won't be as interesting anymore. I stood up, brushing the fallen leaves off my skirt. Alive, he can slowly pay back his debts. Chapter 8. The overnight collapse of the Fu Corporation. Fu Beichen didn't die, but the days that followed were worse than death. The Jiang Group's acquisition of the Fu Corporation moved faster than anyone had anticipated. Jiang Jinshan mobilized 3 investment firms, 2 funds, and 1 trust under the Jiang umbrella, launching a 6-pronged assault on the remaining Fu shares. Every last Fu stock on the market was swept clean. Shareholders who refused to sell were offered a 30% premium. If 30% wasn't enough, 50%. If 50% wasn't enough, double. Jiang Jinshan gave the trading team only one order: no matter the cost, just get the shares. Within 7 days, the Jiang Group's stake in the Fu Corporation surged from 41% to 59%. Fu Beichen was completely ousted from the decision-making tier. On the day of the board re-election, Fu Beichen sat in the conference room, watching the Jiang-appointed representative take the chairman's seat that had once been his. His face was ashen, like a corpse. No one looked at him. The directors, executives, and partners who once orbited around him now all kept their heads down, flipping through documents, pretending he didn't exist. After the meeting, Fu Beichen was escorted out of the Fu building by security. His personal office had been cleared out, his belongings packed into 3 cardboard boxes, left at the building's entrance. A label was stuck on the boxes: Fu Beichen, personal effects from termination, please collect on the day of. The building's surveillance camera captured it all. Fu Beichen stood beside those 3 boxes, tilting his head up to stare at the sign atop the Fu building. That sign had been hung by his grandfather's own hands, the 4 characters Fu Corporation. Gleaming under the sun, he stared for a long time, so long that passers-by began to stop and gawk. Then he crouched down, picked up the 3 boxes, and walked step by step toward the parking lot. The final frame of the video froze on his retreating figure. His dark gray suit was wrinkled, his shoulders slightly hunched, the knuckles of his fingers gripping the boxes pale white. That night, someone paired this video with a mournful piano piece and posted it online. Within an hour, it had over 10 million views. The comments section was a mix of laughter, curses, and sighs, but the most cutting comment was this: look at the way he's holding those boxes. Doesn't it remind you of how Jiang Wanning looked when she was a maid in the Fu household for 3 years? That comment got 800,000 likes. Fu Beichen's retribution was just beginning. 3 days after he was kicked out of the Fu Corporation, the banks came knocking. The 3 properties, 5 cars, and 2 commercial units under Fu Beichen's name were all seized by the bank, because many of the Fu Corporation's loans had been personally guaranteed by him, and now that the Fu Corporation had been acquired by the Jiang Group, the banks immediately initiated recovery proceedings. Bailiffs pasted a seal on the door of his Riverview penthouse, where he'd lived for 5 years. They said he stood in front of that seal for a full hour. Then he turned and walked away, taking nothing, not even a change of clothes. His sister, Fu Yuqing, wasn't faring any better. Fu Yuqing had previously used Fu Beichen's connections to secure a position as deputy editor-in-chief at a fashion magazine, earning 50,000 yuan a month for essentially posting photos on social media. The day after the Jiang Group acquired the Fu Corporation, the magazine's HR called her, politely informing her of a position adjustment and contract termination. Fu Yuqing spent 10 minutes cursing them out on the phone, from their ancestors to their unborn children. HR only said 3 words the entire time: we're sorry. After hanging up, Fu Yuqing posted a status on her social feed: when you fall, you see who's real and who's fake. All those people who used to swarm around me, now none of them answer my calls. Ha, human nature. The image attached was a selfie she'd taken in front of some luxury boutique, holding an Hermes shopping bag. Someone screenshot that post and shared it online. The comments section was immediately flooded. I stood at the top of the marble steps, the morning sun warming my shoulders through the thin fabric of my yellow dress. The air was thick with tension, every pair of eyes fixed on the scene unfolding before them, but I felt nothing, no anger, no pity, no satisfaction, just a cold, quiet clarity. Fu Yichen deleted her social media posts overnight, set her account to private. Chen Shu had whispered to me earlier, his voice low but sharp, but the screenshots are already everywhere. She's trending third, right behind Fu Beichen and Lin Wanwan. I remembered that post from 3 years ago, the one where she complained about the maid splashing laundry detergent on her freshly done nails, the one where she called me Jiang, that woman with a rolling eye emoji. The internet had dug it up, dissected it, and now it was fuel for the fire. Jiang, your sister-in-law's name is yours to call, the comments screamed. Making your sister-in-law wash your clothes, are your hands broken? The richest heiress in the country is your maid, and you think you deserve her. Fu Yichen had deleted her account entirely, but the damage was done. Then came Zhang Meifeng, Fu Beichen's mother. Her old post about the bird's nest soup I made at 5 in the morning, tastes decent, but the heat control is off, was dug up too. Her reply to a compliment, she's okay, but her family background is a bit lacking, not worthy of my Beichen, not worthy. The internet had exploded, family background lacking. The only daughter of the richest man in the country, she didn't know. Jiang Wanning was the heiress. Did she, whether she knew or not? The woman woke up at 5 to make you soup, and you say she's not good enough. Every skeleton in the Fu family closet had been dragged into the light. Fu Beichen's grandfather started with smuggling. His father was investigated for bribery. Fu Yichen was caught cheating in college. Zhang Meifeng was a mistress who climbed her way up 48 hours. That's all it took for 3 generations of the Fu family's reputation to crumble into dust, and it all started with those 20 lashes Fu Beichen ordered in the ancestral hall. I heard he smashed the TV in his hotel room when he saw the news. Not a 5-star hotel, a cheap chain hotel, because all his bank accounts were frozen and he had less than 3,000 yuan left. The room was barely 10 square meters, the window facing a dark corridor, the bed so narrow he could barely turn over. He stayed there for 3 days. Didn't leave, didn't eat. On the 4th morning, he walked out. He hailed a taxi and came here, to the Jiang Group headquarters, and now he was kneeling at my feet, wanting. His voice was hoarse, barely recognizable. The man who once looked down on me from his throne of ice was now a wreck, his shirt wrinkled, his face covered in stubble, his eyes red-rimmed and wet. Fu Beichen, I said, my voice steady, carrying through the silence of the crowd. What are you kneeling here for? I came to beg you. His voice trembled. Please spare the Fu family. The company was built by my grandfather. I can't let it fall apart in my hands. Wanting, for the sake of our marriage, I cut him off, my words sharp as a blade. The crowd of hundreds held their breath. The only sound was the wind sweeping across the square. When you ordered those 20 lashes in the ancestral hall, did you remember our marriage? His face drained of color. When you held Lin Wanwan in front of me, showing off her belly, did you remember our marriage? His body began to shake. When I spent 3 years waking up at 5 every morning to make bird's nest soup for your mother, wash your sister's clothes, cook your meals, and you never once looked me in the eye, did you remember our marriage then? Each word was a knife, sinking deep into his chest. Fu Beichen's tears finally fell. He knelt there, broken, his shoulders shaking, the mighty man reduced to a weeping shadow, but I felt nothing. I turned and walked back into the building, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Behind me, the crowd buzzed with whispers. Ahead of me, the glass doors slid open, welcoming me home. Chen Shu fell into step beside me. Miss Jiang, the lawyer is waiting in your office. The divorce papers are ready. I nodded, not looking back. The sun was warm, the sky was clear, and for the first time in 3 years, I could breathe. He knelt there, in front of hundreds of people, crying like a child. I know I was wrong, Wanning. I truly know I was wrong. Give me a chance, just one chance. I'll do anything you ask, anything. A faint smile curled at the corner of my mouth. Then kneel. I walked around him, heading toward the car parked by the roadside. Wanting. His voice came from behind me, choked with tears, laced with despair. What do you want me to do to make you forgive me? My hand paused on the car door handle, then I turned back and looked at him. Fu Beichen, I don't need you to do anything. Because no matter what you do, I will never Forgive you. The moment the car door slammed shut, I heard the roar he let out while still on his knees. That sound seemed to have been pent up in his chest for 3 days and 3 nights, finally tearing through his throat and bursting out, like a beast trapped in a snare. Despair, rage, and resentment all mashed together. The car slowly pulled away from the Jiang Corporation building. In the rearview mirror, Fu Beichen was still kneeling there. Part of the crowd had already dispersed, but many people were still holding up their phones to film him. He just knelt there, head down, shoulders heaving. He was crying, but no one sympathized with him anymore. Chapter 9. Mother-in-law kneels at the door. Fu Beichen knelt at the entrance of the Jiang Corporation building for an entire day, from 8 in the morning to 8 at night. 12 hours he just knelt there, without eating, drinking, or using the bathroom. His knees were scraped raw, and 2 dark red stains of blood seeped through his trousers, leaving deep-colored marks on the tiles. The onlookers changed in waves, and the phone lenses shifted from one to another. He never got up until 8 in the evening, when the lights in the Jiang Corporation building went out one by one and the security guards began locking up. Fu Beichen was still kneeling there. Finally, Uncle Chen went down and had 2 security guards lift him up and stuff him into a taxi. They said that when he got into the car, his legs were completely immobile, and he was dragged up like a sack of cement. The taxi driver asked him where to go. He named a budget hotel. The driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror, probably recognizing him as the Fu Beichen trending on social media, and didn't say a word to him the whole ride. The next morning, I was having breakfast in the dining room when Aunt Wang walked in, her expression a mix of satisfaction and complexity. Miss, there's someone kneeling outside. The chopsticks in my hand paused. Fu Beichen is back. Again, not Fu Beichen. Aunt Wang lowered her voice. It's his mother and his sister. I set down my chopsticks, walked to the window, and looked down the mountain. Sure enough, 2 figures were kneeling at the gate of the Jiang family villa. Zhang Meifeng was dressed in black, her hair, for the first time, not tied up, but hanging loose over her shoulders, making her look at least 10 years older. She knelt at the front, her forehead pressed against the ground, motionless. Fu Yuqing knelt behind her, wearing a plain white t-shirt and jeans, no makeup, her lips chapped and cracked. She kept her head down, her shoulders trembling slightly. The 2 of them knelt at the entrance of the Jiang villa, like stone statues. Uncle Chen stood behind me, reporting in a low voice. They came before dawn. The security stopped them at the foot of the mountain. Zhang Meifeng said if you wouldn't see her, she'd kneel and never leave. Security asked me for instructions, and I said, what did you say? I said let them kneel. I sat back down at the dining table, picked up a shrimp dumpling, and ate it slowly, then let them keep kneeling. By 10 in the morning, the sun was already high, and the temperature in the mountains had exceeded 35 degrees Celsius. Zhang Meifeng and Fu Yuqing were still kneeling there. Zhang Meifeng's forehead was bruised purple from kowtowing. Every few minutes, she would bow again, her forehead hitting the concrete floor with a dull thud, muttering something unclear. Fu Yuqing swayed unsteadily on her knees, her lips cracked into several deep fissures, with dried blood crusting into dark scabs. The burning pain from the scorching concrete seeped through her jeans, but she dared not get up. The crowd of onlookers grew larger. Although the Jiang villa was halfway up the mountain, the base was a high-end residential area filled with influential people in the city. News of Zhang Meifeng kneeling at the gate spread like wildfire, and within an hour, cars lined the road below. Some held up phones to record videos. Others rolled down their windows to watch the spectacle, and some even drove from the city center just to witness the Fu family kneeling at the Jiang doorstep. When Zhang Meifeng saw people filming, she cowed out even harder. Every time her forehead hit the ground, a heavy thump echoed. Mr. Jiang, Miss Jiang, please, have mercy, spare the Fu family. Her voice cracked with tears, echoing through the empty mountain. All the mistakes are mine. I failed to discipline my son. The Fu family wronged. Warning, please, give the Fu family a way to survive, she shouted and cowed out, the purple bruise on her forehead deepening until it broke open, oozing droplets of blood. Fu Yuqing knelt beside her, also kowtowing, her forehead hit the ground, tears mixing with dust smeared across her face, making her look utterly wretched, but no one sympathized with them. The phone lenses of the onlookers recorded it all coldly, with comments flying across the screen. Serves them right. Where were they? Before, now they know how to kneel. One comment was copied countless times. Jiang Wanning was your family's maid for 3 years, and now you can't even kneel for 1 day. At noon, the sun was directly overhead. The temperature of the concrete had exceeded 50 degrees Celsius. Fu Yuqing finally couldn't hold on any longer. Her body swayed, then toppled sideways like a chopped log. The crowd gasped. Someone shouted, "Call an ambulance." While others kept filming, Zhang Meifeng frantically caught her daughter, resting her head on her own lap. Fu Yuqing's face was deathly pale, the blood scabs on her lips reopening, fresh blood trickling down the corner of her mouth. Yuqing, wake up." Zhang Meifeng patted her daughter's face, her voice sharp and distorted, but Fu Yuqing showed no response. In the end, it was the Jiang family security personnel who walked out, carried Fu Yuqing into the guard room, fed her water, and placed an ice pack on her forehead. Zhang Meifeng stood outside the guard room, watching her daughter being carried in, her lips trembling violently. Then she knelt back down. This time, she didn't kowtow, she just knelt, staring straight at the Jiang family villa's main gate. Blood was still seeping from her forehead, droplets trickling down the bridge of her nose, and she didn't wipe them away. At 3 in the afternoon, in the study, Jiang Jinshan stood by the window, using binoculars to watch Zhang Meifeng kneeling at the main gate. "This old woman has some backbone," he said, lowering the binoculars and turning to look at me. "She's lasted longer than her son." I sat on the sofa, flipping through a fashion magazine, not lifting my head. "Let her kneel. When she's had enough, she'll leave on her own." Jiang Jinshan walked over and sat across from me, taking a sip of tea. "How long do you plan to let her kneel? When she made me get up at 5 in the morning to brew bird's nest for her, she never asked how long I'd have to brew it." I turned a page of the magazine, my voice calm and distant. "Once, I had a fever of 39 degrees, my whole body was burning like a furnace, and I couldn't get out of bed." She stood by my bedside and said, "Jiang Wanning, you haven't brewed my bird's nest today." I said I had a fever. She said, "A fever doesn't mean your hands are broken. Would brewing bird's nest kill you?" I closed the magazine and looked up at my father. That day, I dragged my 39-degree body to brew her bird's nest. When I brought it to her, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the bowl. She took a sip and said the heat was off, told me to start over. The study fell silent. Jiang Jinshan's fingers, gripping the teacup, turned white at the knuckles, the tea inside trembling slightly. "Why didn't you tell your dad? What good would it have done?" I smiled faintly. "I chose my own path. I have to walk it to the end, even on my knees." Jiang Jinshan was silent for a long time, then he stood up, walked to the window, picked up the binoculars, and looked again. "Let her kneel for another 2 hours." At 5 in the afternoon, Zhang Meifeng had knelt for a full 10 hours. Her body began to tremble violently, her lips turned a bluish purple, and the wound on her forehead had formed a dark, blackish-red scab under the sun, but she still hadn't gotten up. The crowd of onlookers grew larger, and videos spread like wildfire online. The hashtag Zhang Meifeng kneels at Jiang family shot to the top of trending lists. Finally, some dissenting voices emerged in the comments. "She's been kneeling for 10 hours. That's enough, isn't it? Even though she was terrible before, she's still an old woman. Isn't the Jiang family being a bit too harsh?" But these voices were quickly drowned out by even more criticism. When she made Jiang Wanning get up at 5 to brew bird's nest, she didn't think she was being harsh. Jiang Wanning had a fever of 39 degrees and still had to brew bird's nest for her. Have you all forgotten? 10 hours and you can't take it. Jiang Wanning endured 3 years. At 5:30, the Jiang family villa's main gate finally opened. The person who walked out wasn't Jiang Jinshan or Jiang Wanning, it was Wang Ma. Wang Ma carried a basin of water to the main gate and stood before Zhang Meifeng. Zhang Meifeng looked up, saw the basin in Wang Ma's hands, and a glimmer of hope flashed in her eyes. Is Miss Jiang willing to see me?" Wang Ma didn't answer. She lifted the basin and slowly tilted it. With a splash, a basin of cold water poured directly over Zhang Meifeng's head. Water streamed down her hair, face, and neck, soaking her black clothes until they clung to her body. The wound on her forehead, washed by the water, oozed fresh streaks of blood. Zhang Meifeng froze completely. The crowd fell silent for a moment, then erupted in even more frantic filming. Wang Ma set the empty basin on the ground, looked at Zhang Meifeng, and spoke in a voice that wasn't loud but carried every word clearly. "This is what my young lady asked me to pour," she said. "This basin of water is to repay the debt from when you made her brew bird's nest while she had a fever. She also told me to tell you this. When you've knelt enough, Go home, the Fu family's debts can't be repaid by kneeling. With that, Wang Ma picked up the empty basin and turned to leave. The Jiang family's gate slowly closed behind her. Zhang Meifeng remained kneeling in place, drenched through water droplets falling from her chin onto the scorching concrete, making faint sizzling sounds. She opened her mouth, as if to say something, but no sound came out. In the end, 2 security personnel walked out and helped her up from the ground. Her legs had completely lost all sensation, and she was dragged to the roadside. Supported by them, the crowd gradually dispersed, and the foot of the mountain fell silent. The setting sun dyed the entire mountain a deep orange. Zhang Meifeng sat on a stone bench by the roadside, wrapped in a towel given by security, her wet hair plastered to her face. She stared in the direction of the Jiang family villa, her eyes devoid of hatred, only a kind of indescribable emptiness, as if asking herself, how did our Fu family end up like this? That evening, I stood by the window of my room, watching the small black figure at the foot of the mountain being picked up by a taxi. Wang Ma stood behind me, her eyes red-rimmed. Young lady, my hands were shaking when I poured that basin of water. Why? I was afraid I poured it too hard. I turned around and looked at Wang Ma's hands, covered in calluses. These hands had changed my diapers, braided my hair, and taken care of me for over a decade after my mother passed away. Wang Ma, you didn't pour it hard at all. I took her hand. Compared to what she did to me back then, this is nothing. Chapter 10. The divorce papers slapped in the face. The video of Zhang Meifeng kneeling for 10 hours and getting a basin of water poured over her head hit 300 million views overnight. The entire internet was buzzing. Some said the Jiang family was too harsh, going so hard on an old woman. Others said Zhang Meifeng deserved it. You reap what you sow. The two sides clashed fiercely online, with 6 of the top 10 trending topics related to this incident, but none of that mattered to me anymore. Because today was the day Fu Beichen and I were officially signing the divorce papers, the conference room of Jiang Group's legal department was chosen as the venue. I picked this place myself. I wanted Fu Beichen to sign the agreement that would sever all ties between us, right here on Jiang family turf. At 10 in the morning, I walked into the room precisely on time. I wore a bright red dress, vivid as a flame. My lipstick matched, a deep, striking red. My hair was pinned up, revealing the elegant curve of my neck. 3 years ago, when I married Fu Beichen, I wore a white wedding gown, pure as a white rose, fragile and obedient, ready to be molded. Today, I wore red to tell him one thing. From now on, I have thorns. Fu Beichen was already waiting inside. He sat at the far end of the long table, the divorce agreement spread out before him. A pen lay beside it, its cap still on. He had lost a lot of weight. His cheekbones jutted out sharply, his eyes were sunken, and his chin was covered in dark stubble. The gray shirt hung loose on his frame, as if he had borrowed someone else's clothes. The moment he saw me walk in, a flicker of light sparked in his eyes, but it died just as quickly, because behind me, he saw Jiang Jinshan, lawyer Zhang, Uncle Chen, and 3 lawyers from Jiang Group's legal department. A full row of people stood behind me, like a wall. Mr. Fu, lawyer Zhang has already confirmed the terms of the agreement with you. If there are no issues, please sign. Lawyer Zhang's voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Fu Beichen lowered his head to look at the document, his fingers pressed against the paper, knuckles turning white. Wanting, he lifted his head to meet my gaze, his voice hoarse, like sandpaper scraping against wood. Can I speak with you alone for a moment? Lawyer Zhang was about to refuse, but I raised a hand to stop him. Everyone, leave us. Jiang Jinshan glanced at me. I gave a slight nod. He patted my shoulder and led everyone out of the room. The door clicked shut, and the conference room was left with only Fu Beichen and me. Sunlight streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting alternating patches of light and shadow across his face. His eyes were bloodshot, dark circles bruising the skin beneath them, like he hadn't slept in days. Go ahead. My voice was calm. Fu Beichen stood up, walked around the table, and came to stand before me. Then he did something no one could have predicted. He knelt, not the kind of kneeling he had done outside the Jiang Group building, the kind meant for public display. This was real. Both knees hit the floor, his back bent, his hands pressed against the ground, his forehead touching the toe of my shoe. Wanting, his voice came from the floor, muffled, as if filtered through something thick. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. Everything I did to you these past 3 years, you have every right to hate me for a lifetime. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm only asking you, give me a chance to make it up to you. I didn't speak. My father raised me to believe that a man must never bow his head, never admit fault, never Show weakness. I thought being good to a woman meant giving her money, a house, a title, nothing else mattered. When I married you, I thought you were gentle and obedient, someone who wouldn't cause trouble, so I never bothered to understand you, care for you, or truly value you. His voice began to tremble. I knew you were suffering in the Fu family for 3 years, I knew, but I thought it didn't matter, as long as you could endure it. It wasn't a real problem. I never considered that you might feel pain too, or exhaustion, or reach a point where you couldn't take it anymore. His forehead pressed against my shoe, his entire posture reduced to utter humility. That day at the ancestral hall, when Lin Wanwan said you pushed her, my first thought wasn't sympathy for her, it was annoyance. I thought the whole thing would damage the Fu family's reputation, so I had to handle it quickly. The 20 lashes I ordered for you. It wasn't because I believed her, it was because I needed the fastest way to shut everything down. My fingers tightened slightly. This was the first time I had heard him speak the truth about that day. He hadn't been deceived by Lin Wanwan. It wasn't a moment of impulse, it was a calculated decision, weighing costs and benefits. He chose to sacrifice me. You made a good choice. My voice was soft. Sacrifice an unimportant wife, protect the Fu family's reputation, and play the hero in front of your pregnant mistress. 3 birds with 1 stone. Fu Beichen. You calculated it pretty well. His body shook violently. I know I'm a bastard. I know I don't deserve to be your husband. I know it's too late for anything I say now, but wanting, he lifted his head, tears streaming down his haggard, unrecognizable face. I really do know I was wrong. Give me a chance, even if it's just to let me stay by your side as a servant. Don't divorce me. Don't leave me. I looked at his tear-filled eyes. For 3 years. I had imagined countless times that he would look at me like this, say he was wrong, beg me to stay. Now the fantasy had come true, but there wasn't a single ripple in my heart. Fu Beichen, do you know what I hated most about you these past 3 years? He froze. It's not that you didn't love me. It's not that you neglected me. It's not that you wanted to whip me for Lin Wanwan. I crouched down to meet his eyes at the same level. What I hated most is, you turned me into the person I despise most. Humble, fawning, walking on eggshells. Every day, I lived by reading people's expressions, measuring every breath to see if it might upset someone. 3 years in your home, and I almost forgot who I was. My voice didn't tremble, it was as calm as a frozen lake. Now you kneel here, begging me not to leave, not because you love me, it's because you found out I'm Jiang Jinshan's daughter, it's because the Fu Corporation was acquired by my father, it's because after losing everything, you realized there was still one fool you could beg. That's not true. It is. I cut him off, stood up, and looked down at him. If I weren't Jiang Jinshan's daughter, if my father hadn't come with 100 luxury cars to pick me up, if Jiang Group hadn't taken over Fu Corporation, where would you be right now? He didn't answer, because he knew the answer. If I were still the same Jiang Wanting with nothing to my name, he wouldn't have given me a second glance. Sign it. I picked up the pen from the table and held it out to him. Fu Beichen stared at that pen as if it were a knife. His hand reached out, then pulled back, reached out, then pulled back 3 times in total. Finally, he took the pen. His hand trembled so violently he could barely grip the barrel, the tip hovering over the signature line for a long, agonizing moment, never quite descending. Wan Ning, did you ever truly like me? His voice was so soft, as light as a feather. I did. I didn't hesitate, but that was a long time ago. His tears splashed onto the agreement, soaking the 5 characters that read divorce agreement. Then he signed his name, stroke by stroke, crooked and uneven, like a child learning to write for the first time. When the final stroke fell, his entire body seemed drained of all strength, and he collapsed onto the floor. I picked up the agreement, confirmed the signature was correct, and handed it to Lawyer Zhang, who had just walked in. Lawyer Zhang inspected it carefully, then gave a slight nod. Miss, the agreement is in effect. From this moment onward, you and Mr. Fu Beichen are no longer husband and wife. 7 words, light as air, yet heavier than anything in the world. I turned and walked toward the door. Wan Ning, Fu Beichen's voice came from behind me, hoarse and barely audible. Is there anything you want to say to me? I paused at the doorway. I didn't turn around. Yes, what? From now on, I, Jiang Wanning, and you, Fu Beichen, have no connection whatsoever. You walk your narrow bridge, and I'll take my broad road. If you ever see me on the street in the future, remember to take a detour, because I can't guarantee that the next time I see you, I'll be as polite as I am today. The door closed behind me. Fu Beichen's final expression was sealed inside the conference room. Lawyer Zhang caught up to me in the hallway, handing me a document folder. Miss, the divorce certificate will be ready within 3 days. Also, the old master asked me to inquire about something. What is it? The Paris branch opens next week. The old master wants to know if you'd be interested in spending some time there. Paris, it was my mother's favorite city. She once said that after she retired, she wanted to go to Paris with my father for a year, rent a small apartment by the Seine, buy fresh croissants from the bakery every morning, and take evening walks along the riverbank. That dream never came true. I took the folder and glanced back at the direction of the conference room. Behind that closed door sat a man I had once loved with all my heart, but now, that door was shut. Tell Dad. I'll go. A week later, International Airport, private jet tarmac. The Jiang family's Gulfstream G650 sat at the end of the runway, its silver-white fuselage reflecting the 2 o'clock afternoon sunlight. I wore a khaki trench coat, my hair cut short, just reaching my shoulders. Wang Ma said I looked like a different person with the haircut. I told her that was exactly the point. Jiang Jinshan stood by the boarding stairs, one hand in his pocket, the other adjusting the collar of my coat. Call me when you arrive, it's cold in Paris. Dress warmly. I know, Dad, if you don't like it, come back. The Jiang family will always have a place for you, okay? He paused, then added another sentence. If you meet a good man, bring him home for me to meet. I laughed. Dad, I've only been divorced for a week, so what? What kind of man can't my daughter find if she wants to? He patted my shoulder, a glimmer in his eyes. Go ahead. Take a walk by the Seine for me. See the places your mother always wanted to go. I hugged him. His shoulders were still so broad, the familiar scent of sandalwood still so comforting. Then I let go, turned, and walked up the boarding stairs. At the cabin door, I looked back. Jiang Jinshan stood on the tarmac, with Uncle Chen and Wang Ma behind him. Wang Ma was wiping her tears, Uncle Chen slightly bent at the waist, his posture as respectful as ever. My father raised his hand and waved to me. That gesture was exactly the same as 3 years ago, when I left home to marry Fu Beichen. The difference was that 3 years ago, he stood at the villa's entrance, his eyes red but not waving. The plane taxied down the runway, the nose lifted, and it soared into the sky. Outside the window, the city grew smaller and smaller, the skyscrapers turning into matchboxes, the streets into fine lines. I saw the Fu Corporation building. That building, once belonging to the Fu family, now had the Jiang family logo hanging from its roof. I also saw the direction of the Fu family's old mansion, that patch of gray rooftops shrinking into a tiny those places that had trapped me for 3 years were being swallowed by the clouds. One by one, the flight attendant walked over, slightly bowing. Miss Jiang, would you like something to drink? Champagne? Very well. A wine glass was placed in my hand, the amber liquid leaving fine arcs on the glass's surface. I leaned against the window, taking a sip of champagne. The plane was passing through the clouds, the world outside pure white. Nothing visible. Then, suddenly, the plane burst through the clouds. The sunlight at 10,000 meters poured in through the window, making me squint. The sea of clouds spread out beneath my feet, endless, like a vast field of soft cotton. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Uncle Chen. Miss, Fu Beichen came to the Jiang Corporation building today, asking to see you. Security told him you had already left the country. He stood at the entrance for 10 minutes, then left. I stared at the message for 3 seconds, then turned off the screen. The clouds outside the window churned, sunlight scattering a layer of gold dust over them. Paris lay ahead, and my life, from this moment on, would begin anew. The end.